Hello, hello. Welcome to the fine print. I think it is just me today, and I'm so sorry that I am late. Here's what happened. So I went to go donate plasma this afternoon with plenty of time to spare, and I guess they were short on people. So I got through like they screen you initially to make sure your iron levels and all that stuff is good to go. That went through smooth sailing, but then like I hit the point of no return, realizing that I'm going to be late because they were just understaffed, busy day. So yeah, so I was when I was typing in the messages, hey, I'm going to be late. I'm trying to do it left-handed because I had my right arm hooked up. So that is what happened. So I totally get if y'all can't join the usuals. It's a weird day. So we have a lot to just kind of talk about and go into the ether, I guess you could say. No King's protests were a massive success. Um, I was seeing film in all. Oh, hi Sheila. I've been seeing video and people just, shooting footage from wherever they were in some of the reddest of the red small towns. Salt Lake City, um, really well done, Salt Lake. I know that it's a pretty red area, but they done something to piss off Utah because they've been even the hands off protests in April had a really phenomenal turnout. Their streets were filled. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm hearing too. 11 to 12 million. And I brought my daughter with me. She is 13. Now, some will say that was irresponsible. Here's the thing. I think everybody's got to make their own choices, whether or not to go, not go, and level of risk that you're willing to take. So, in our town in Columbus, we also had a pride event, and we also had market Saturdays going on, which is like kind of like a farmer's market, sort of, not really. It's really the local businesses along the main street of the downtown area kind of have tents. People sell their wares, face painting, all sorts of stuff, goes on around the summer. So, and my daughter really wanted to go. And so I was like, well, if if that's all going on at the same time, I highly doubt. And I actually, now that I know I know the actual organizers of our chapter of groups that were organizing our little event, if I had known that then, I would have never even really thought much about it. But it was a really, really great low key event. Columbus is the second largest. I just wanted to kind of put into, I guess, maybe perspective of things, of how things can change. Columbus is the second largest city in Georgia. I'm not even sure I'd call it a city. Um, there's probably around 200,000, 150 to 200,000 people. And it's come a long way. I mean, a long way from its roots. It's I don't know if this is like self-proclaimed or if it's actually like factual, but the city, at least in the museum, it says that this was one of the last battles of the Civil War. Um, Civil rights did not go over well here. Um, you know, Coca-Cola was invented here. When Coca-Cola was originally like a pharmaceutical in like the turn of the century. Um, it has a dark past. It has a really checkered, dark past. Since when I moved here, going on like 15 years ago, it's right after the worst of the Great Recession, like, 2010, 11 area. And Columbus was one of the saddest towns you would ever see. Like, almost Detroit level sad, but not quite. It was crime ridden. The stores on the main street were just empty because so many businesses went out of business from the Great Recession. Um, it was a sad state. Shootings were common. Carjackings when I first moved here, we were warned about carjackings. And over the last 15 years, I've watched this community um, blossom, like just blossom. And now the downtown is thriving with music and food. Our rally smelled so good because there was so much food being cooked from the restaurants. There were food trucks. There was just everything. And I look at this town from an even though I've lived here forever, I don't really consider it my home. So I kind of look at it as an objective observer of things. And you watch people complain and complain and complain about things, and it's just like, dude, do you remember what this town was like 10 years ago? I mean, it's far from perfect. It's far from, there's still crime. There's still shootings that I don't know why we have so many shootings, but we do. There's, but I was really proud for Columbus, and this is in particular why. Where our little event was, if you go to, I don't think I posted this on the Library Democracy TikTok, but on my personal Mighty Librarian TikTok, um, I posted a video of, so anyway, our group was permitted to stay on this little median. It's a very wide median. You can fit easily, I mean, we fit about 1,500 people, 2,000 people on this little like narrow long patch of grass in the middle of the road. And if you go up a little further, you can't see this from any of my videos, but it's there. You walk up a little further and there is a historical landmark, and it was Columbus's tree that, I don't know if I can say the L word on YouTube without getting tanked, but that is where a lot of executions took place. Um, the L word. And to go from that to yesterday, I wish more people could look at it, who are born and raised here, could look at how much the town has improved in the last, since I got here. It was a shitty town when I got here. Now it's like respectable town, like worth coming to, with historical landmark sites all over the place. And it's just I felt really good about Columbus yesterday. And the cross, I live right on state line. Phoenix City is the first town you'll hit in Alabama. We're kind of called the sister cities because a lot of people live there, work here, or vice versa. The Phoenix City group crossed the bridge to come to our group, and so I thought that was pretty cool. No wonder they call it the Friendship Bridge. But I there was a lot to be proud of yesterday, not just because of, I think not just for the country, but I think within our individual communities, I'm sure there's a lot that you could, find in a week of terrible news. I think, we need to take the wins where we can get them. So, um, that was my participation in the No Kings protest. My daughter had a sign that said, she's really like, she's a theater kid. So um, she had on her sign, "Do you hear the people sing?" And a lot of people wanted pictures of her sign, so she got a lot of attention for her sign. And the reason why she was like really into Les Miserables right now, because when Trump went to go see Les Miserables, first before we get to the meat, we got to talk about this because when Trump, I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday, he went to go see Les Miserables at the Kennedy Center, and I'm just like, I originally I read it on a meme, excuse me, and I was like, this can't be, doesn't he know what the premise of the well, it's originally a book, but d does not understand the premise of the book. Like, that's like awkward. Like, so, but then turns out, yeah, he actually did. And so my daughter wanted to see it, so I put on the movie, Les Miserables. And so we watched it together. And so I'm just kind of like chuckling to myself, like throughout the movie of some of the lines that come in through it. And, really the storming of the Bastille is more about class than anything else, and how most of the people have nothing, where, the 1% have something. So, or way more. So, I'm just kind of like, he has no shame. Like, what it was, because, spoiler alert, they don't win. They storm the Bastille, but, eventually the French army takes it back. But not too long after that, the king loses his head. So, you know, that just, like, they have no self awareness. But I digress. So anyway, that's why she put the Les Miserables uh, uh, quote on her sign, and people dug it. Um, so there were some really really great signs there. So it was and just glossing over the comments, it seems like there's some really great uh, stories, and not necessarily like, it was like, when I say great, I don't mean it was like fun per se, but I think for me, my heart hurt, like literally hurt this week, just watching things. And we're online so much, and we can see all the comments, both negative and positive. And for me, it was just like, surely there's got to be more of people who feel like me. And I keep hearing there's more of us than them, but are there really more of us than them? And I really hate the us versus them thing, because that really part of the reason we got into this. But like, are there enough people to push back, or do I have to just kind of resolve into my new reality of my country? And so to see, like, some of these towns that I never would have guessed would show up in force the way they did, it just really helped my heart not hurt for a day. Um, and it, it was a much needed, all right, this is worth fighting for. There were way more of us than them. And I also had a teachable moment with my daughter that I'm going to share with you, that I shared on my TikTok. I'm going to see if I can. I was trying to log into it, but I put a lot of like authenticators on my stuff, to make sure that I couldn't, uh, so it's harder to get hacked. But um, just give me 1 second. I'm trying to log into. And like, what I end up doing, I create so much security on my stuff that then I forget, like, I forget things, and stupid. But so I'm not, you're not just watching me figure this out. I I was on the edge of the grass for the protest, and I had a good vantage point of, the peripheral of what was going on and what was happening and all of that. And um we didn't have too many counter protesters, but we did have a couple of trolls because the way it is in our town, this grassy area that we were on, it's you can drive around it. It's meant to be a turnaround, to get from one side of the road to the other. But, they were using it as a. Since I'm into the We Do Not Care Club, the We Do Not Care Club is actually a really funny. I'm gonna try to send it to my because this is a mom and pop type establishment. I'm trying to do this all myself, but anyway, so there was this troll who had he was parading around, driving around in circles of the little area with his Trump parade, his Trump banner, and an American flag. That's not it. That's not it. With his Trump, stop that. His Trump banner and his what you call it, uh, American flag. And what was really kind of funny is like they keep on talking about on how much they care about the flag and all of that, but they don't take care of the flag. So his flag was like all messed up and all frayed and all nasty and like in tatters. And I grew up in a really Republican household. Well, New York Republicans a little different, in what they care about. They were the Reagan Republican, I guess you could say. And flag care was like you have to take care of your flag. So I have a lot of that still just in the back of my head, So I saw his flag and I'm just like, dude, retire get a new flag. Come on, show some respect. So I made a video on my TikTok about, flag etiquette and care, and it's actually law. There's a whole section of federal law about the flag, the when to fly it, where to fly it, how to fly it, if you were going to display it on, like, on a stage, like in school, like, and there's other flags where it can be in respect to the other flags, all of that stuff. But um, it did say proper care is you need to have proper care, and then when it's time to retire the flag, the preferred way of retiring it is burning it. So I find it so funny these people are so upset about, so many things about the flag, but they will fly around with a faded, gross, nasty flag. And having Trump stuff on a flag is considered flag mutilation according to the federal code. So, just little tidbits you can um, send back to your MAGA trolls and all of that. Um, Also, when I started seeing some of the hilarious crowd sizes, the only reason why I really even cared about the crowd size of the was because I know it matters to what's his face. And then I saw this meme and it just everything came home from 2016. Remember Sean Spicer, and he was like, "This was the biggest inaugural audience, blah, 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 period." So that made me laugh. It made me laugh a lot. I'm not even gonna lie. Um, so some other interesting things I wanted to point out from the day. Uh, I'm I'm having a hard time with like teaching information literacy in a lot of respects because like a lot of our news is so compromised. Like I sound like a Trump supporter almost like in the but I just wanted to point out like I'm so grateful that social media exists, that smartphones exist, that we can so easily record stuff and upload it somewhere anywhere, and to show people this, because look how these there's my mouse. Look at just how this is being reported, and by so like so-called liberal media, you know, a lot of them are just normalizing this. Like, let's not pretend, just because it's released as officially as a celebration for the, birthday of the army. Come on. Like, I mean, if you look back at newspapers and information from like the 1800s, even 19, like they're like newspapers got scathing. And I get it, new legacy newspapers are kind of a dying medium, but they didn't have to be. Um, One of the things when I went to library school, it was in particularly Wikipedia was like in like, at its utmost popularity. And a lot of people said, well, what do we need librarians for if we have Wikipedia to do all this for? And now we can look back, 12 years ago and laugh at that. But, when I first got to library school, to combat this, they're just like, my professors were like, you either got to change and pivot and find a way to make yourself relevant and incorporate everything, or you're going to be out of a job. The profession's done. And so over the last decade, librarians have done mostly a good job in pivoting and figuring out what their place is in the ever-changing media environment. And I think that's really true with any industry. You either got to pivot and change, or you get left behind. I mean, if we didn't pivot from horse and buggy, I mean, like, I'm sure when the automobile was invented and started becoming more and more accessible to everyday people, and it wasn't just, like a rich man's toy, I'm sure the horse and buggy industry was like, oh my god. But that didn't stop the automobile from being from being developed so that the everyday person could have it. So I think when it comes to these other mediums, you got to figure out how to make it so people want to consume your news. And it's definitely not capitulating to authoritarian regimes, or being worried about your merger, or firing newscasters and journalists who have worked for you for 25 years, and then, I mean, they didn't even call for him to be fired. They just criticize, like, talk about surrendering in advance. So I think a lot of, um, legacy media's downfall is their wounds of their own making. But I think I'm so glad that we have other things now. Because if we had to rely on legacy newspapers, the traditional forms of, I mean, we would think that, everything was fine with this Kim Jong Un parade. And that's exactly what it is. It's a Kim Jong Un parade, or attempted, because as there's some, I didn't save it, but there were several people putting side by sides of a Kim Jong Un parade, like a real one, and then his. Um, I've also heard some interesting theories. I don't, I'm not really connected to the military anymore. So I would love to know if this is true, because that's something that wouldn't shock me as soldiers doing, as not, what's the phrase, when malicious compliance. And so a lot of people feel they were marching out of step on purpose. Um, that it was purposefully sloppy. Either way, it definitely wasn't as high and tight as Dear Leader in North Korea's parades are. But I don't, I've watched a lot of soldiers march when I was, living right near or, spent a lot of time on army bases, and I've watched a lot of soldiers march, and, you know, they weren't as high and tight as, normally I've seen in the past. If it was done on purpose, well played. If not, well played. the effort the effort was lacking then. Um, so there's that. Oh, and I had saved some more just how the news is reporting this. Some, there I keep seeing new and new independent like networks popping off. So there's some I don't even know like where like what their affiliation is in terms of like are they bullshit? Are they independent? Are they small independent? Are they trying to what are they what's their end goal? Um but I did save a couple of if I could just I don't know if anyone else's internet is really weird today. My sister in New York and me and my internet has you know has been struggling and it never usually does. I'm not saying like, a deep state like conspiracy or anything like that, but it is interesting that two people have two completely different, in completely different states, both have internet issues of, like the circle of the blue circle of death as I call it. Okay, I'm not gonna mess around um too much with this. I don't want the connection to get all messed up. But if you haven't seen a lot of the other clips, um, from the parade, other what you call it, um, other cities, there are some really good ones. My personal favorite was this San Diego. I think it was San Diego, or yeah, San Diego. The people that were spelling out things. You don't like I once had a in high school, we had to spell out something, like cuz we were I graduated in 1999. So like they wanted to do a 1999 on the football field and it's not easy. And this is before drones. This is before like um aerial photography, so it was hard getting everybody to make, so I applaud them. I'm sure drones and all of that makes it like 100 times easier to do that, but I have an appreciation of how that can easily turn into a shit show, just trying to
To prevent tradespeople.
okay, let me see. I thought I saved some of these, but maybe not. Oh, Alison, I really like Alison Gill. She's pretty feisty. She was one of the like OG, you know, um, Trump resistors. Like she got fired pretty early on in Trump's, I guess you could call it, what do you call it, in his first term. I heard that, and I think it's really fitting that that the I've seen in several lists the biggest crowds. Philadelphia had the largest turnout. Um, and I think that's kind of fitting, being that I'm also seeing some as I was looking for that one comparison of like crowd size, uh, Denver police are, I guess, clashing with. This might be from last night. Denver's been going through some things with police. Um, so that's that's kind of that's kind of crazy to see. Oh, Boston, yeah, Boston was massive. All of the major, the major bastions of liberalism, the hellscapes that they claim them to be, were massive, massive. Um, I, just being from New York and have up right outside of New York City, and just knowing like how wide a city block is and how long a street can be, and just seeing the whole thing, like not only just filled the width, but like the length of like the entire street. That is a massive amount of people. LA too. Wow. Like that's a lot of people. And that's got to be causing some anxiety. There's people popping Xanax at the White House today, because you can like you can downplay it all you want. You can say, oh, they were paid really 11 million. So like think about it like this. What would it take for you to be paid to do so, to go to a protest, to be a paid agitator? What would it How much would it take for you? And then think about it. So I know, I'm just using simple numbers. Let's say it's $100. So you mean to tell me that you got somebody to pay 11 million people $100? So that becomes, uh what does that become? A billion, $1 billion, 100 million, no, $1 billion. $1 billion, just that's if you paid everybody $100. That's if you paid everybody $100. So even if, all right, so let's just say maybe 5 million attended at $100. You see what I'm saying? Like sometimes you really have to show the like really like spell it out for these people. Sometimes it's not worth it. But I did this as one guy in a Columbus Facebook group, because I'm just like, he's like, how much did you get paid? And I'm just like, no, I hate him all for free. That's how much I'm unhappy. So, but like, so I said to him, I'm like, think about it like this: all of these people are paid. Who has that kind of money to pay and $100 isn't won't buy people off. That's not, everybody has a price, but $100, a lot of people are just like, no, you're gonna, for me to spend an entire day somewhere, no, you're gonna in New York City, probably make more at McDonald's for a day's worth of work. So like what? So it just becomes like kind of absurd. When you actually calculate the numbers, it works for flat earthers too, because they say that teachers are paid off by NASA. Okay, so you mean all these teachers are paid off? Not one of them leaks information about the earth being flat, because they're paid so well. And like the math doesn't math, because nobody really like has that kind of money. Like the math doesn't math. Like, you know, and even let's say it did, like the cause and effect, like why are teachers working second jobs if they're paid all this money? So, it's so dumb. But I'm glad that a lot of people. I oh yeah, I Sheila, let me so other people. I watched, I fell asleep after the event because I was just really tired. I was exhausted. It's so hot in Georgia. It is like so hot. It is like Satan's asshole outside. It is the sun is literally like 3 feet from our faces. It is just so hot. It is just, and someone made a TikTok video about it that was just I felt seen. Anyway, but yeah, Malcolm Nance and Marcus Flowers. I love Marcus Flowers, and I applaud his effort to try to unseat Marjorie Taylor Greene. Um, if there was one person who could do it, it would have been him. Um, Unfortunately, not so much. But you know, she keeps opening her mouth daily and not reading bills. So um, before I open my mouth, I think I have a fun fact about Marjorie Taylor Greene, about her district. Um, Let me just fact check myself. Because if it's not her, if she's not the representative of, it's a different mega. Okay, so it isn't. I'm glad I fact checked it. So Woodstock, Georgia, had a really big, which is right near her district. It's like one down. Um, had a really big turnout for the No Kings protest. Now that is a red, 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 red area of Georgia. It's pretty rural, pretty in the middle of nowhere, and its representative is Barry Loudermilk, the dude. Um, the day before Jan 6th, that gave the sketchy tours. People are taking pictures of like staircases. Because everybody, when they go to the Capitol, the staircases exactly what people want to take photos of. But so that's his district. In There was turnout in Polk County, which is definitely her district, which is the middle of nowhere. There was some good turnout too. So um, it these and I think we just got to keep put regardless of who they are. Even if your rep is Marjorie Taylor Greene or Barry Loudermilk or whoever the random asshat that wants to take away our rights and give tax breaks to the poor, gotta keep the pressure on them because you know they can make denials all they want. The fact of the matter is, you know eventually they're gonna crush the people in their district if they haven't already, particularly with the AI, because where Marjorie Taylor Greene lives, that's where conspiracy theories are born and fostered till they become grown. And um, you know, the fact that and if Democrats were smart, which they're not, they would go after that in her district. Um, Maybe not necessarily to capture it. I don't see them voting for, but maybe getting a different Republican. And that's also what I wanted to touch on too, because I saw some things um, about just the sides that were on. I think Tony makes a bunch of really good points about this as well. I understand the anger and frustration and hurt and the rage, and believe me, my heart cannot take any more hurt and rage. Um, because I got too many feelings. But at the same time, when people start trickling off from MAGA, I understand the tendency to like be like, you know what, fuck you. But at the same time, I'm not saying, I think people misconstrue what people like myself and maybe even Tony say as like absolution. There's a difference between grace, absolution, and forgiveness. You can give grace without any of those. You don't have to forgive to give somebody grace. But right now, we got to start picking these people off in terms of persuading them to our side. There's a big chunk we ain't getting. Don't waste your time on those people. But like with California, California, California is like the funniest twist of irony I think this country has ever seen in terms of states' rights. Because you have these asshats claiming states' rights and it's my right, leave it to the states to decide. This is the biggest case for the 10th Amendment that, like, has ever existed. And then you have people, influence. You're never going to change an influencer's mindset, but they like to stoke the flames and, yeah, burn the city to the ground. Really? You want to burn your fellow Americans? Like, that in itself is kind of, twisted. But let's even forget about the human aspect of it. I thought you were all for states' rights when it's abortion, but now, because eventually, if he's only going after, it's kind of like I meant to put this in a Substack article. Everybody remember Tony Soprano in the last season of The Sopranos after he's shot and in the hospital and he wakes up from his coma. When he's getting out and about back to being, his power within the mob is, in question. Um, Even if nobody says he was badly injured. He's still recovering. So this is a great time for a power grab. So what does he do to quash the whispers that either he knows or thinks he knows are existing, whether or not they should quash his leadership position within the organization? He goes and finds the biggest, baddest mofo, his bodyguard, and beats the snot out of him. Now, why does he do that? To show that he's the most powerful person in the room. Even though he's weak in a more vulnerable state, he'll still beat your ass. It's also a prison strategy that some people will say. You don't want people to pick on you. You find the biggest person and you beat the ever loving snot out of them, and the rest will leave you alone. So, this is Trump's strategy with a lot of things. That's why he's going after Harvard. You take down the biggest one, the rest will likely either self capitulate or you know, it's an easier fight with them. Go after the biggest state, and I'm not sure if it's the biggest in landmass. I don't think it's the biggest, but it's the biggest in. I mean, it could be its own country if we're really being honest. Like it's a nation state, in its size, in its industry, in its GDP. I mean, the state of California has a bigger economy than countries. So if he succeeds in California, then the rest are much easier, because if the biggest falls, then the rest will slowly. And of course, I'm initially talking about the blue states. But what the red states don't understand is that he's coming for you too. He's just starting with the ones he doesn't like first. And even then, he's already withheld FEMA money from red states. He's he's pulled funding for a whole bunch of service programs for the most vulnerable and the weakest. So if you think that this is only like, yeah, get them liberal bastion hellscapes, they'll come for you and they'll take your guns, because that's what fascists do. Um, yeah, that's funny, Sheila. Yeah, that's another good point. He has a vendetta against, which I'm not really sure why, where the origin story of why he hates him so much, but it's probably something I'm overthinking it, and it's probably as simple as Gavin. Even my daughter was like, "Ooh, he's really handsome." Like, so, so he's a good-looking dude, um, and he controls. Well, I controls probably not the best word, but he is the head of state of a very large anti Trump state, or perceived. I know there's tons of Trump supporters in like Huntington and Northern California. But oh, that's right. I forgot it. That's probably the origin story. That's the origin story. The pettiest answer is usually the right one. Um, his, um, yeah, his son used to date, what's her, uh, what's her name? Kim Guilfoyle, um, who, ladies and gentlemen do this too. Like plastic surgery on your face, be careful with that shit because a lot of times you look beautiful just the way you are, and you're trying to just tweak something and it ends up like, ugh, like, you know, ugh. And she's one of them with the lips, and I don't know why women do fillers. Like, I get it, you want your lips to be like boom, and but there hits a point where you look like, that, like that, and it just looks stupid. She was beautiful. His Kim Gargoyle, uh I already Guilfoyle. Kimberly Guilfoyle was gorgeous at one point. And like I said, you get a little bit of plastic surgery and it just mm, it can really make you look all sorts of gross and nasty. Yeah, but I mean men, I've seen, that Ricky Rourke, he was a good looking dude, and it was like, what were you doing? And all of a sudden he's like Gargamel, like, ah, no, 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 no. And the duck lips is just terrible. Um, so I also wanted to touch on, since we're hitting, um, let me get this up. There's a fly in my the Minnesota lawmakers that were um, either killed or attempted to be killed in last night. No, not last night. Friday night into Saturday, and is it is just wild. There they are. The man survived. Uh, John Hoffman and Melissa Hortman. She has passed away from her injuries, and I think it's really tough. Um, yeah, the shooter is a white Christian nationalist. Don't let MAGA's trying to spin it like he's one of us, like far left. No, dude, come get your boy. And it's really, I when I was at the donation center, I was thinking, how do we even combat this? Um, I don't even know how we fix. I don't know how we fix this, but everybody getting attacked, everybody getting, um, and I find the FBI stuff bullshit and a joke because if I don't know if you actually cared about if they actually cared about this, I just feel like they could see this coming. I mean, it really just was a matter of time before. I was trying to um, look for another article, but I'll just leave it at that. Oops. I don't, I don't think it's a conspiracy. And by conspiracy, I meant like like organized planning, like with other people and things. But it's definitely, I mean, Trump has blood on his hands. I mean, everybody who pushes the bullshit that has blood on their hands for it. Um, like, I mean, this is where we are. And, I don't agree with, what I'm about to say, but let me get it out and I'll readjust it. I think we wonder why people have a hard time standing up to things. And this is why. At the same time, if you are scared, there's other ways. You don't have to be in office to fight back. You can fight back in other ways. Let somebody who's willing to put themselves on the line like that. And people in Congress, like, I'm sorry, Nancy Pelosi has, if she doesn't have her own detail, she has money to have her own detail. A lot of these people have money for their own detail, even if they won't give them public funding for their own detail. Um, so, you know, I it's a scary time we live in. It's hard to want to put yourself out there because there's friggin' psychos like this who will hunt you down and like and how I will always this will always baffle me, linking how people can link the 10 commandments to killing an elected official is like beyond me, but yeah, I heard about that. There was a internal memo about the shooting. Oh, well, that's nice. What'd you do about it? you know, like, you know, and we've seen time and time again that this is why when I start saying about how we have to take the MAGAs that break off slowly, I'm not talking about like influencers, companies, if those people decide to break off. I was really worried about Elon becoming a folk hero prematurely. It seems like that, he's crawling back to, Daddy MAGA, but like, no, I'm sorry. Like, I do not, you have blood on your hands because anybody who owns a social media platform, if you are multiple times a day telling people how evil someone or something or some group of people are, you are stoking the flames to get somebody to act on this. And you know that. Elon's not a dumb person. He knows exactly what he's doing. So do all these any influencer with that big of a platform knows what they are doing. And it is laughable and disgusting to try to say, well, I didn't mean violence. What did you think was going to happen when you proclaimed how evil these people are? Like, what did you expect? And like, the last 5 years, man, like, I believe in free speech, but sometimes I'm just like, just because you have thoughts doesn't mean you have to like say them. Yeah, Elon definitely needs corporate welfare. I don't know what the answers are to this because clearly we as a people are not responsible enough with complete free speech. Um, but restricting it isn't the answer either. I don't know what is. Probably it's probably the algorithm is probably where part of the answer lies. But yeah, I don't know how we fix it. Um, which isn't helpful either. Pointing the problem, like, yeah, there's a problem like that. You missed a spot over there, but I'm coming from a librarian. I'm at a lot, I have this saying that like 10 years ago, it felt like I was emptying a swimming pool with a big bucket when it came to teaching students information literacy and the stuff that I was met with. Now it feels like I'm emptying the ocean with a bathroom cup, and not even a plastic one. paper kind that disintegrate after one use. So you definitely need a new one. That's what it feels like to teach information literacy in 2025. A bathroom cup emptying the ocean. And the point is like I'm getting nowhere fast. Like, and hello. Yeah, what a week. Definitely played with my emotions a lot. Definitely. But Gavin Newsom, I've never been a fan. I haven't been an anti Gavin Newsom. I've just been kind of like in the bandwidth of my brain with the sheer volume of information that I have to take in daily. He's just very low priority on my bandwidth. So I didn't really have a whole thought like argument for or against him. I didn't really give him much thought. Say what you will about him, you know, I think he's effective. Um and I mean the way he handled it, I mean like Donald Trump literally got half the country to love Gavin Newsom. Regardless of your feelings on the dude, like I even some people who I were deep seated like anti. Remember, he was recalled in 2020 2021 timeframe, if I remember correctly. So I think they just found the new Democratic leader, which say what you will, he's effective. He's a good messenger. Punches back um, in a lot of ways, and right now we need somebody who can punch figuratively, not literally. Asshats who will report this, oh, she's calling for violence, like, um, who's well spoken, who looks like they reach out to the other side. I'm not sure if I'm not sure really what his actual intentions are or were with talking with Steve Bannon. I know this is unpopular. I don't see that as, first of all, I don't think he's anti-trans. I think he was trying to understand where, like because here's the thing, if we don't start talking to each other and us don't see the people with power talking to each other, we're not going to get out of this mess, not by a long shot. And there's people who are really good at Pete uh, Mayor Pete, his I see anyway, you know who I'm talking about. I mean, he goes on Fox News all the time. Very well spoken. He is not only well spoken, intelligent, but he also knows how to pivot really well and like kind of give it to them without it being real obvious. Um uh Kella says, I'm a California. I'm iffy on him. One thing I know, the rest of the nation will not elect him. Too much California hate out there. But maybe. But, maybe not. I mean, California produces a lot of presidents. I'll give it to, you got a lot of presidents that come out of California. Um, and, people can't, he's got a charisma to him. So if you get him on the campaign trail, people often can't help but when someone's really like Obama, a lot of people had a hard time not liking him in even if they didn't vote for him, they kind of he had that charisma that was very appealing. JFK was another one. Um, when he was assassinated, Republicans alike were devastated by his loss. People liked him, even if they didn't necessarily vote for him. So I'm just saying he may not be the next president, but he's definitely a leader. Because who else is there? Like who else did a whole in a short amount of time? You can say AOC and Bernie. I mean a big chunk of the country. I don't think we and also I don't think we can have just necessarily one leader. Obviously we need one leader for a presidential candidate. But not everybody is a good messenger for every audience. And I think we also need to recognize that. Gavin can speak to bro culture and convince, and even Pete Buttigieg is really good, even in bro culture. Sending Kamala may not be the best idea. Maybe send her to the academic side or the lawyer, like I wish we'd start realizing that there almost in this day and age can't be a single message for the entire thing. It has to be like hands off. Cuz hands off can mean different things to different people. And you know, I I think we need a good list of surrogates. I think we need a good list. I also think we need to drop the political sniff tests. That really screwed us in this election too. Um, I think the political, what do they call that? Political purity. I mean, we're never going to find the perfect candidate. Any candidate, no matter who it is, whoever they present to us to be the Democratic nominee, they're going to have an issue, a flawed issue that you don't like. That's just, they're not. And, sometimes they change their mind on issues. I don't know why people get so bent on that per se. I have changed my mind on like if you heard me at Allison at 20 years old and Allison at 40 years old, I'm completely different. You live life, you start learning, you start actually meeting some, living some of the things you think you have an opinion on. And I think we got to get back to people instead of and I don't have answers. I just know that what we're doing and have done is not working and it just seems to make people madder. Um but I guess we'll see what comes. I think he is handling it as good as he can. I do enjoy reading his punchbacks to some of the red state governors. They're he de- he definitely. I wish I could be like that. I'm not quick on my feet like that. I can think of something like if I read a stupid comment on my social media, give me like a couple minutes and I'll come up with a retort that's can be, like, ooh, burn. But if like in the moment, I'm not a good debater, I don't think. I wouldn't be good at that. Unless I really know the topic well. Like that. Like if it was relevance of libraries, oh yeah, I could take down anybody who would say, "Oh, let's privatize them to Amazon," which don't even get me started on that one. But so I'm just looking through what y'all have been talking. Well, hopefully, happy Father's Day, by the way, to all the dads out there, whether you're a chosen dad or you got children's of your own, give them a hug because it's scary times, and they probably just want to be left alone. Honestly, I want to be Mother's Day. I just want to be left alone. Don't talk to me. Don't. I have a rule on Mother's Day. Don't ask me questions. Do not ask me a question. I don't know where it is. I don't care where it is. I don't know when something or what time it is. Don't ask me a question. Because all day long, at work, at home, every day, all day long, I'm asked questions. And I do not want to be asked questions on Mother's Day. Give me one day of no questions from anyone or anything. No friggin' questions. Um, so that part of your comment just made me think about something. Yeah, this is why cops identify, are clearly identifiable, wherein they show you badges and warrants and they don't have masks on, because I don't know about you, but I don't, okay, before 2024, I don't open my door to nobody unless you got food or something for me that I need to sign, because you can leave that shit on the ground. And most of the time I tell them leave it on leave it on my doorstep. I realize that not everyone has that luxury of being able to have a doorstep to, you could just leave it on, but we have a modest home, so I would rather you just leave it on the friggin' doorstep, and that's that. In particularly, I'm not opening the friggin' door if somebody's pounding saying they need to come in, and I look at my camera and there's guys with masks and guns. That, like, that's not that's not happening. You're not coming in my house. And Georgia is a stand your ground state, I believe. I should look into that. But yeah, no, you're not. I in no way, shape, or form am I letting anybody in a mask and a gun just because they say they need to come in with a warrant. And they don't need a warrant. Yes, to this house, yes the fuck you do. And I'm calling the cops and I'm being like, yo, there's a masked person with a gun and you need to come get your boy if it's your boy, and if not, you need to get him away. Because yeah, that in a land of shit, that's not happening. Me opening a door for something like that. So, and you want to keep at it? Well, I'm going live. And I see a lot of people fighting back on ice. Um, and not even necessarily like, attack, like just, you're not coming in here because you do not have a warrant. I don't know when in the world it became okay to arrest people or to come into property without a warrant, but yeah, yeah, I'm not. Nope. In a land of nope, 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 nope. Well, I think that is all for today. Stay safe this week. You know, I don't even know how to mentally prepare for the next part of the week, but hopefully we can get through it without too much bullshit and drama, and we can just push back. And I don't know, maybe this shit show will be over one day. I don't know. But anyway, have a great rest of your Sunday. Happy Father's Day. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye, friends.